I think we need more homes for everyone, period. So whatever can be aided in helping other people rent here, that's what we need.
It has been 1 year since BC's crackdown on short-term rental housing, but has it actually made Coquitlam's rental market any more affordable? Let's check it out. A year ago, in May 2024, BC rolled out sweeping new regulations targeting specifically short-term rentals. The idea was simple. Too many homes were being used for Airbnb short-term style rentals, leaving few options for longer-term rental options, meaning that the prices were being pushed up and up and up. So the province stepped in with regulations. Now, in order to have a short-term rental, it had to be an owner's principal residence, and you had to register. It also gave the cities new enforcement powers so that they could keep an eye on things and, frankly, deal with owners that didn't comply. The government positioned this as a silver bullet for the rental crisis. The idea being that if investors couldn't profit from Airbnb-style listings, they would just return those units to the long-term rental pool, meaning that they would become now available for, the general public, people that wanted to rent long-term. Increasing that supply was supposed to allow prices to ease because there wouldn't be so much upwards pressure because of the lack of availability. This was marketed as a bold move, not just in Vancouver, but in the suburbs too, Coquitlam, Port Moody, etc. And if you're a renter in one of these markets, you know that the ever-increasing rent prices has been challenging, to say the least. Coquitlam, with its population being over 100,000 people, falls within the new BC regulations. But as of March 2025, there were 279 active Airbnb listings throughout the city of Coquitlam. Now, numbers vary, but most places publish an average occupancy rate of about 52% and an average annual income of about $22,000 to $23,000 a year. Now, despite this crackdown, Coquitlam remains one of the most expensive cities in Canada to rent. The average rent in Coquitlam is still 23% higher than the national average. This would suggest that despite these new regulations, it really hasn't moved the needle all that much. Now, at first glance, it actually looked pretty promising. Vancouver saw a steep 22% drop in short-term rental listings pretty quickly within the first couple of weeks of the regulations coming in. And in theory, that's thousands of units going back into the long-term rental pool. But here's where the story gets a little bit murky. Even as listings started to drop, rents didn't follow suit. An average rent for a 2-bedroom condo in Coquitlam is sitting at about $2,950 per month right now, and a 3-bedroom is at about $3,600 a month. That's only down about 2% from last year. And for a full house, rent has actually increased 7% from last year. So what's going on? Well, housing markets are stubborn. They don't operate in a vacuum, and there's lots of data to consider. What this comes down to at the end of the day is still supply and demand. And there are other factors to consider as well. Immigration rates, interest rates, how quickly new home projects can come to market. All of these things are going to influence the amount of supply and the demand that a market sees. And on top of all of that, some of the homes that were previously listed on Airbnb as short-term rentals may have just gone vacant, or they've actually shifted over to more of a gray market short-term rental. So what was expected to be a flood of units coming to the market may have actually been more like a trickle. So this brings us to the main problem: good intentions versus messy realities. BC didn't get this entirely wrong. They sent a very clear message. Homes should be for people, not for profits. But in cities like Coquitlam, where vacancy rates are razor thin and demand keeps climbing, policy changes alone were never going to be enough to move the needle. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Focusing on these short-term rentals might have distracted from focusing on the real, deeper structural issues. Things like zoning restrictions, slow permitting processes, and a lack of real incentives for building purpose-built rentals. So yeah, you could say that reducing short-term rentals moved the needle a little bit, but without boosting actual housing supply, Coquitlam renters aren't likely to feel any relief anytime soon. The market needs more than just a rule change. It needs a total rethink. I'll see you in the next one.